What if the greatest danger to you was never outside? Not people, not society, not the corruption you see around you. What if none of that had the power to truly destroy you? What if the only thing that could ruin you was something much closer, something you carry within yourself? Because deep down, you already recognize what is right, you recognize what pulls you down, you sense what you're meant to become, and yet you hesitate, you delay, you justify, you override what you already know, not once, but repeatedly. So the question is no longer, why do people go astray? The deeper question is, why do we betray our own souls? Assalamu alaikum, and welcome back to Reflection, where we explore the deeper wisdom of the Qur'an. In the last episode, we spoke about the soul, not as an idea, not as something abstract, but as your true reality, the part of you that remains while everything else changes. Now, the discussion moves one step further, because once you accept that you're not just a body, but a soul, a more difficult question begins to emerge. If that is who you truly are, then why do you keep acting against yourself? Why do you recognize what elevates you and still delay it? Why do you sense what harms you and still move towards it? Because the struggle is not always ignorance. Sometimes the struggle is resisting what you already know. And this is where the Qur'an speaks directly to you, not first about society, not first about others, but about your own soul, as anchored in Surah al-Ma'idah, that is Surah number 5, verse 105. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, ʿalaykum anfusakum. All you have faith, take care of your own souls. This is not isolation, it's responsibility. It does not remove your duty toward others, but it makes your own soul the starting point. Because the Quran is not only asking what is happening around you, it is asking, what are you allowing to happen within you? In this episode of Reflection, we will explore what it truly means to adhere to your soul, why misguidance cannot harm you unless you accept it, how forgetting God leads to losing yourself, and how every moment is shaping the soul you return to God with. If the soul is real, then something else becomes unavoidable. Deep within yourself, there are truths you already recognize. Not truths you are taught, but truths you feel. There is something you need to confront. Before blame, before excuses, before everything you point to outside yourself, you already recognize not everything, not perfectly, but enough. Enough to feel when something is right, enough to sense when something is wrong, enough to experience that internal pull. And the Quran describes this not as something you acquire, but something already placed within you, as anchored in Surah al-Shams, that is Surah number 91, verse number 7 and 8. وَنَفْسٍ وَمَا سَوَّاهَا فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا. By the soul and the one who fashioned it, and inspired it with its wrong and its right. This is not detailed knowledge. It is orientation, a direction within you towards what elevates and away from what degrades. Before you justify something, you feel it. Before you explain it away, you recognize it. And this is why you are accountable. Because the problem is not always that you lack knowledge. The problem is what happens after you recognize. As Imam Musa al-Kazim tells us in the book of Al-Kafi, لَيْسَ مِنَّا مَنْ لَمْ يُحَاسِبْ نَفْسَهُ فِي كُلِّ يَوْمٍ. He is not one of us who does not take account of his own soul every day. Because knowing is not the struggle. The struggle is the moment that follows. On one side, clarity. On the other, desire. And between them, a decision. Do I follow what I recognize, or do I silence it? And betrayal rarely begins with rebellion. It begins with hesitation. I'll do it later. It's not that serious. Just this once. And in that moment, knowledge is still present, but it is no longer leading. It has been overridden. And that is where self-betrayal begins. Not when you act, but when you decide to go against what you already recognize. Because every time you do that, you're not just committing an action, you are shaping who you are becoming. Pause for a moment. When was the last time you knew something was wrong and still moved towards it? What did you tell yourself in that moment? The Qur'an takes the discussion even further, not towards society, not towards other people, but towards you, towards the part of the human being that chooses, responds, and becomes. Now return to the earlier verse, not just the beginning, but what comes after it. Once again, anchored in Surah Al-Ma'idah, Surah number 5, verse 105. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu alaykum anfusakum la yadhurrukum man dhalla idha ihtadaytahum. O you who have faith, take care of your own souls. Those who go astray cannot harm you if you're guided. This is not a comforting statement. It's a confrontation because most people live the opposite way. They measure themselves by what surrounds them, what is common, what is normalized, what no longer feels wrong. And slowly they drift. Not because they lost truth, but because they replaced their standard. They stopped asking what is right and started asking what is everywhere. And this is how people drift, rarely through one massive decision, rarely through open rebellion. Most of the time, it happens quietly, through repetition, through exposure, through seeing something so often that eventually it stops affecting you. What once shocked you becomes familiar. What once felt uncomfortable becomes ordinary. What once disturbed your conscience slowly loses its weight. And eventually, you stop asking whether something is true. You only ask, is this what everyone else is doing? And that is one of the most dangerous moments in a human being's life. Because once normality replaces truth, the soul begins to drift without realizing it. But the Qur'an cuts through this. It tells you others can influence you, but they cannot decide for you. Their deviation cannot harm you unless something within you accepts it. Because influence alone is not enough. It requires permission, internal permission. And Imam Sadiq is recorded to have said, Man aslaha ma baynahu wa bayna Allah, aslaha Allahu ma baynahu wa bayna nas. Whoever rectifies what is between himself and God, God will rectify what is between him and people. Because the real battleground is internal. Two people can live in the same world, see the same things, face the same pressures, and walk away completely different. Because the difference was never outside. It was in what each of them allowed inside. Because every environment offers invitations. Invitations toward distraction, toward compromises, toward imitation. But the soul still chooses. And this is why the Qur'an keeps bringing you back, not to society first, but to yourself. Consider this. Where in your life have you lowered your standard, not because it was right, but because it became normal? But the Qur'an now takes the discussion somewhere even more dangerous, that a human being can slowly lose awareness of himself without even realizing it. Not through ignorance alone, not through lack of intelligence, but through forgetting, as anchored in Surah Al-Hashr, that is Surah number 59, verse number 19. وَلَا تَكُونُوا كَالَّذِينَ نَسُوا اللَّهَ فَأَنْسَاهُمْ أَنفُسَهُمْ. Do not be like those who forgot God, so He made them forget their own souls. Notice the order. They forgot God, so they forgot themselves. This is not symbolic, it is causal. Because God is not just something you remember. He is the reference point through which everything is understood. When that reference point fades, you don't stop living, you don't stop choosing, but but you lose direction. Without God, the soul loses its measure. It no longer knows what elevates it and what deforms it. So slowly, desire begins to feel like freedom, and neglect begins to feel normal. And this is why spiritual decline is often difficult to recognize while it is happening. Because the soul rarely announces, I'm drifting away from God. Instead, distractions become easier, obedience becomes heavier, reflection becomes rarer, and eventually a person can become distant from God while still thinking they are close. And this is what the tradition calls the hardening of the heart. In a narration reported in Tafsir al-Burhan, Imam Baqir explains this particular verse, Nasullaha fa'ansahum anfusahum. He tells us they forgot God, so He caused them to forget their own souls, meaning they abandoned obedience to God and lost awareness of what truly benefits them. This is critical because forgetting God is not just about dhikr on the tongue, it is about alignment. And when that alignment is lost, you begin to act against yourself without realizing it. Gradually, through repetition, through compromise, through silence, until something shifts, not outside, inside. What once disturbed you no longer does. What once pulled you back becomes quiet. And this is the most dangerous form of loss. Not when you do wrong, but when you no longer feel what wrong is doing to you. Sit with this. What is something that once unsettled you but no longer does? What changed? The truth or your sensitivity to it? Now, ultimately, everything comes together, not as separate ideas, but as a single reality. You recognize, you hesitate, you drift, you forget, you betray yourself. But none of that stops the journey, because whether you are aware or not, you are moving, as anchored in the Qur'an in Surah 5, verse 105, where God says, إِلَى اللَّهِ مَرْجِعُكُمْ جَمِيعًا. To God is your return, all of you. And the Quran describes that movement in Surah 84, verse 6. Ya ayyuhal insanu innaka kadihun ila rabbika kadhan famulaqih. O mankind, you're striving towards your Lord relentlessly and you will meet Him. You're not choosing whether to return. You are already returning. Every action is movement. Every decision is direction. Every private moment is shaping your soul. Even the moments nobody sees you, the thoughts you entertain, the compromises you justify, the habits you protect, none of them disappear because every action leaves something behind. Not only in your record, but within you. Every choice shapes the kind of soul that is moving towards God. Because your actions are not just things you do, they are things that form what you become. As recorded by Imam Musa al-Kazim in the book of Al-Kafi, he tells us every soul will come before God bearing witness to what it has earned. And the Quran reduces it to its essence in Surah 91, verse number 9 and 10. قَدْ أَفْلَهَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنْ دَسَّاهَا. Successful is the one who purifies it, and lost is the one who corrupts it. There are not many outcomes. There are two. You either elevate your soul or you bury it. Pause for a moment. If nothing changes, who are you becoming? And is that someone you're willing to return to God with? So, if you step back and look at everything together, a pattern starts to emerge. Not about others, not about the world, but about what happens within you. And from that, four things become absolutely clear. First, you already know. This was never about lacking guidance, but ignoring what you already recognize. The struggle is not to discover the truth, but to stop resisting it. Second, your soul is your responsibility. No one else can corrupt it unless you allow it. What surrounds you may influence you, but what defines you is what you choose. Third, forgetting God leads to forgetting yourself. And when that happens, you begin to act against your own good without even realizing it. Not because you don't know, but because you stop paying attention. And fourth, you are already on your way back to God. Every moment, every choice is taking you closer. The only question is, are you returning with a soul you protected or a soul you betrayed? So this is where it leaves you, not with information, but with a decision. And in the next episode, we go one step deeper, because if you can mislead yourself, if you can justify what you know is wrong, if you can slowly drift without even realizing it, then a more unsettling question emerges. Can a human being become so deceived that falsehood begins to feel true? And if that can happen, can human beings truly know the unseen at all? That is what we'll explore next. If this reflection made you pause, then don't leave it here. Take it further. Like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Until next week, wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.